my name is Angel and welcome back to my channel. If you have been wanting to read classics but don't know where to start, then this video is for you. I have quite a few classics that I think are perfect for beginners to start you out on your classics reading journey. Some background on me: I did major in English literature. Classics are a big part of that, but I've tried to really focus on ones that are accessible, enjoyable, and that you likely already know the main storyline of anyway. That makes it more digestible for you as a beginner. I had posted a reel like this years ago on my Instagram, This Angel Reads, and it's one of my posts that have gotten some pushback because I featured Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I won't be featuring that in this video just because I really want to focus on beginners, but I do stand by that if you're wanting to read Austen, just start with Pride and Prejudice. You've likely seen the adaptations a million times, you know the story by heart, so what's stopping you from picking it up? It's going to likely be the story by Austen that you understand the most. And I know that it has some Regency era language in there, and that Austen was a great thinker of her time, so really need to examine the satire and irony in there. But you can enjoy it, so maybe if you're not a beginner and you're wanting to read Austen, I still recommend Pride and Prejudice. I'm just not gonna dive into it in here. I do love a good classic. I try to read at least one classic a year. A lot of them I read during the fall because, as you'll see, a lot of classics that are easy to read are horror books. And I don't even really like horror. I don't read horror often. I definitely don't watch horror movies because I'm a scaredy cat. But for some reason, when it's like an old Victorian story, I just gobble it up. Without further ado, let's start with the books that I think as a beginner you would enjoy. The first is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. This one is so wacky, but it's short and it is a lot of fun. You're likely already familiar with this story. We are following Alice and the White Rabbit, the Mad Hatter, Red Queen. The language is easy to read, the story is easy to understand, and it's just a lot of fun. Maybe you grew up watching the animated film as a child, so you're already familiar with this story, or you like Tim Burton's adaptations. So it's really fun to go back and read the source material, get to experience the story in the original format. The back says, "But I don't want to go among mad people," Alice remarked. "Oh, you can't help that," said the cat. "We're all mad here. I'm mad, you're mad." "How do you know I'm mad?" said Alice. "You must be," said the cat, "or you wouldn't have come here." Next we have a little longer of a story, but also marketed as a children's book, and that is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. If you are a fantasy lover and you have somehow not read this book yet, I highly recommend it. But I also recommend it for people who are wanting to dive into classics. This is a great start. We are following Bilbo Baggins, a hobbit, on this adventure to help these dwarves reclaim their land from a dragon. Reading this book also opens up a world of classics for you. So you could read this one and then really do a deep dive by reading Beowulf, the Saga of the Volsungs, anything else that Tolkien might have been interested in, any other Norse mythology. So this could really open up a world of classics for you that I think makes it so fun. And also read this and then go into The Lord of the Rings. I love those books. I love Middle Earth so much. Tolkien's writing style is so descriptive and beautiful. He really created a world that feels real, that you don't want to leave and that you root for. To this day, I say that I'm a hobbit. I feel like one, and I love hobbits. A great epic fantasy series. Another point with a lot of these classics is that they're old, right? So you can easily access them, and there's all kinds of editions that you can get. So if you are a very visual reader, maybe you can find an edition that's been illustrated, or find just a very beautifully bound copy to make it feel more valuable to you and to make the reading experience more fun. That is something that's great about classics. Speaking of which, my next recommendation is Carmilla by J. Sheridan Le Fanu. This edition has been illustrated by Jaden Hall. The illustrations are fun in this one, but like I said, you can pick up any edition, any copy, and get the same story. Carmilla came before Dracula, So I definitely recommend reading this one before Dracula. That is what I did, and I love that experience. It made it a lot richer. Another reason why I recommend this one first over Dracula is just the length. Carmilla is considerably shorter than Dracula, and even though Dracula is an epistolary novel, and I do think it's easy, pretty easy to read, it's long, there are moments that drag. With Carmilla, there's not a single moment in this one that drags. Carmilla is a creepy vampire, as vampires should be. Like I said, I'm a scaredy cat, but I still enjoyed this one. I made the mistake of reading this one at night though, and I did not sleep that night. But that just shows how great of a story it is, that it can still scare people to this day. I love vampire stories, just loved reading Carmilla. I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but that Carmilla series that was on YouTube, I believe you can still watch it on YouTube. I also watched that while reading the story, and I love that experience. Some sapphic romance going on there. You just search, like, I believe all I searched was Carmilla on YouTube, the Carmilla series, and it should pop up for you if you're looking for something to watch as well. It does a great job of adapting the story, I think. Sapphic, vampires, creepy, short, what more could you want in a classic? Next is The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. I read this one last October. Perfect creepy fall read. This one is technically science fiction, but it's creepy, so I'm just thinking of it as horror. We are following a man who stumbles upon the island of Dr. Moreau, and Dr. Moreau is doing some shady things. Our main character is hearing animal noises at night, just howling in pain, and he's wondering what is going on. What island have I ended up on, and am I going to be able to get off this island? Dr. Moreau is really trying to manipulate nature, so he does a lot of creepy things, and the results, of course, are not going to be good. This is another short story at 104 pages, so you could read this in one weekend in the fall, really create that atmosphere for yourself. And like most of these classics, there are so many adaptations, so many things that take inspiration from this. I am thinking of this young adult series, The Madman's Daughter by Megan Shepherd. This book, well, I read it years ago, so I'm not actually sure if I would recommend it now, but this is just one of many examples of where you'll find adaptations and inspiration, retellings of these classics that show how lasting these stories are. Series, for example, first book is The Madman. So the first book is The Island of Dr. Moreau. Second book is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is also in this recommendations video. And the last one is Frankenstein, another one on this list. With that being said, let's talk about The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which I have in this huge bind-up of Robert Louis Stevenson books. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is another short horror book. You see the struggle of the duality of man. We have Dr. Jekyll, who is taking this elixir to really tap into his dark side, and then we get Mr. Hyde. So a lot of similar themes, like trying to control and manipulate human nature, and the good and evil that we have in all of us. We see Mr. Hyde, of course, take over. Bad things are happening. We get this investigation that really pulls the story forward. It's super short, so highly recommend. I have another one by Stevenson that I recommend, and that is Treasure Island, which is a children's story and a lot of adaptations to watch first. For example, the Muppets adaptation, which is brilliant. That will really introduce you to the story and make it easier to read, because even the easiest classics to read still have some words that you're likely not familiar with, so it does help to watch an adaptation first and then go in. At least it did for me. Treasure Island is where we get Long John Silver and how we envision pirates to this day, with the eye patch and the wooden leg and the parrot on the shoulder. If you love pirates, read Treasure Island. It is a great adventure story. Next one is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley really slayed with Frankenstein. Love that story so much. I've read it a couple of times. Frankenstein is following Dr. Frankenstein, who creates this monster. It's just great. So on one side you have the doctor who's trying to control nature and create new life, and then you're seeing the life that he's created and what he has to go through now. There are some parts that are honestly heartbreaking. While it is a longer story, it's still easy to get through. We also get letters in the story that move the story forward pretty quickly. Just this connection to Frankenstein's monster. Alright, so I have one more recommendation for you, and this one is the most contemporary of all of them. It is 1984 by George Orwell. I would say that this book is one that I would read right now, given today's society. Highly recommend this one. It is pretty thick, but very readable, very current, very relevant. Orwell uses very simplistic language. I love his little pamphlet on writing and how he writes and why he writes the way he does. He really writes for the common person. He's not using jargon. His intention is not to go above your head. His intention is to bring these big concepts and reveal them to you in the most simplest of terms. We are following our main character Winston, whose job is to work for the party and rewrite history per the demands of the Ministry of Truth. The party is persecuting people who commit thought crimes, so go against what they're pushing, and Winston grows to hate this. But Big Brother is always watching, so what does this mean for Winston? I'll just read a quote here. "The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command." A very scary novel, and one that should be required reading for anyone and everyone. George Orwell also wrote Animal Farm, which is a lot shorter than this one and just as important and powerful. But 1984 is my favorite of the two, so I included this one in the video. Those are all the classics that I recommend for beginners. There are so many classics that you can enjoy in the world and so many that I still need to get to. But I hope that this is a great starting point for you, and I hope that this video just made you feel like you can do it, you can read classics. You just need to find the perfect one for you, which is really what it boils down to. If you read a few pages of any of these and you don't like it, don't feel like you need to force yourself to read it. No one is watching over you, making sure that you read these certain books or anything like that. You are smart no matter what you read, whether that be smut or Shakespeare. Always read what you enjoy, and I hope that at least one of these books works for you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.